Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Dignity in the Death Penalty webinar, Getting the Conversation Started. My name is Mare Ernesto. I'm the Associate Director here at Renew International for Pastoral Services. Just a few housekeeping items before I introduce our co-host today. This webinar will be recorded, so just watch your email in the next day or so for a link. You'll be able to view it again, as well as receive information about any resources that we might share, links to some things that might be helpful for you as you continue this conversation with your parish. And if you have any questions, please do use that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen to type in your questions, and they'll be passed on to the moderator. We'll do our best to answer those live or to respond to those when we send out the email after the webinar is done.
Thank you, Mare. And we are going to keep the chat open for you. That's not something we usually do, but we have found that this crowd is really knowledgeable and really gracious about it. So, do feel free to chat with each other. We are so happy to have, we were looking through our registrations and we have diocesan staff, we have parish staff, we've got people from the Diocese of Austin, Orlando, Portland, Maine, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., which is not a surprise because we've worked with them on this topic. We've got sisters from several different orders. We've got Dominicans, we've got Sisters of St. Joseph, Sisters of Charity of Blessed Virgin Mary, and then we've got parishes all over the country, Minnesota, Michigan, California. Shout out to St. Joe's and Bogota, that we're Jersey people. I've actually sung a wedding at your parish, and schools too. So it's so great to see so many people who are really engaged in this topic and who are, coming here to get some more information about how to get things going. Mare is, as she said, is our Associate Director of Pastoral Services. You want to tell us a little more about yourself, Mare?
Sure, yeah. Before I started working at Renew, I worked at another Catholic nonprofit with a focus on youth and young adults and programming in our Catholic faith, and social justice was very important to the work we did there. So I was very happy that this was one of the first projects that I was able to work on when I began here at Renew. And working with a pastoral team of folks, we'll talk a little bit more about this as we continue the webinar, but a lot of other work that I do here is with parishes and with parish consultants who will work directly with teams in a parish to implement some of these processes. So if you're interested in something like dignity in the death penalty, to know that we have resources and folks here that can support you in that journey. So a lot of the work I get to do here is working directly with the team that works kind of boots on the ground with the folks at the parish level.
And I'm Jennifer Bober. I am the manager for marketing and communication. So it's my job to make sure you guys know about all of these programs. And I'll say I am someone who not necessarily was always, engaged in this kind of this looking at Catholic social teaching until I came to Renew. And boy, have I found, something that really inspires me. One of my first projects was our creation at the Crossroads, looking at Laudato Si, integral ecology, and then to get to work on this, work with the team that was creating this, meet Sister Helen, has just been eye-opening and inspiring. And one of the wonderful, inspiring people is our author, Alice Hugh Brown. Alice, you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Alice Hugh Brown. I've been a religious textbook editor for a long time, and I'm now working with Renew on various editorial projects. I was interested in social justice, particularly racial injustice, since my teens, and I did writing in school papers and letters to the editor. That was my contribution at that time. And if you get into the book, in session 2, you'll see where my first real exposure to the death penalty was when I was on a capital punishment jury pool, part of. And we had all these questions, and they never got around to asking if you believed in the death penalty, which I cannot comprehend at all. And So finally, the judge did ask me, and I said no. And you can learn more about that in session 2. But that really got me thinking of the power that a juror has over the life or death of someone. And you really need to have more information to even be close to being able to think clearly as to what the repercussions and what the death penalty really means, because it doesn't mean you get the death penalty and a couple of weeks later you're executed. It can be 20 or 30 years that you go through unbelievable injustices and attacks on your dignity. So when I was asked by Renew to write about a faith-sharing book about the death penalty, I was very happy to do so because it was something that it gave me the opportunity to share some of what I've learned and to keep learning in order to do the book. So we base it on Sister Ellen Prejean's book, Dead Man Walking, and then we take it from there. And we're hoping that we will get you interested in becoming more educated on the topic. Through our discussion, we will motivate you. That's our goal today.
Thank you so much, Alice. And so this is a faith sharing book. Mare, it tells me, what is faith sharing?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So faith sharing, as we describe it here at Renew for any of our processes, it's meant to be something that can be lay-led. So you and your friends can get together, pick up one of the books and start this conversation, start this process among yourselves in a small group setting. There is prayer that is intentional through each session, through each chapter. There are scriptures to reflect on. There are stories, individual personal encounters, and really, especially for this resource, you get to learn the story, a name about somebody who's been impacted in some way related to this topic. So really taking the time in that small group setting to pray about these things, to look at what scripture says, where we can tie our faith back into this, to reflect on it, and in the model of see, judge, act. So by the end of each session, you're called to action. So it's wonderful to sit around with your friends, with folks you might not have known before you got together in this small group, and to really talk about these topics that are challenging, that will open hearts and open minds, and to not just sit and leave it there, leave it at that conversation, but to take it into action. What is that going to look like to live your faith through these small groups, and then to inspire others, as Alice was saying, to really inspire others to say, well, what is it that you're involved with again? You seem really fired up about this topic. And one of the things that led us to this particular webinar today is Alice and I and Jen in the past, we've done virtual faith sharings with this book. And one of the things we heard consistently with different groups of people who joined our virtual faith sharing, and some of you might be on here today, was this is wonderful, and we're really excited to be a part of this faith sharing experience online, but we also want to know, how do we bring this to our parish? What are those steps we need to take? So we thought, let's offer that opportunity to learn a little bit more about that. So that faith sharing really is meant to grow and to inspire others to learn more about a particular topic, in this case, dignity and the death penalty.
Alice, as the author, how do you see this as being really efficacious, as far as starting dialogues and this topic?
Well, some people don't think much about the death penalty. It's sort of out there, one of those things that you really don't want to be too knowledgeable about, because it just seems too depressing. But if you talk about the opposite of the death penalty, you get away from the depressing part. And as you work with others, you learn that you're not the only one that was interested in the topic, that there are other people that it really matters to, and they're happy to have someone else that it matters to. And then you start sharing what you've learned, and you share the questions you have, because obviously every time the more you learn something, the more questions you have. But there are, we think, good resources in the back of the book to help answer questions that may come up as you're participating in the sessions. There are reflections to help you at the time during your faith sharing. You get some information, and then what does that new information mean to you? Or was it not new information? And what do you have to add? So there's a lot that can be, it just grows. As Mare mentioned, we had these virtual webinars earlier last year, and it was so wonderful to find that people in different parts of the country had the same basic interest, and how active some were, and how glad those that had never been active, had never really thought about it, but found a place where it was safe to ask questions about it. Because that's what's so great about faith sharing sessions, is they're safe places. Because what happens in faith sharing sessions stays there. So you don't have to worry about, anything going anywhere else, and perhaps your question is construed, because it's all in a safe environment. And it's just helpful to talk about the value of a person's life, because it's hard to believe in 2022 that in the United States, there are still less than half the states, there are 23 states that now have abolished the death penalty. And we've really come a long way in protecting society, which the church and others used as a reason not to do away with it. So you might not know some of that, but if you participate in this, it's a way of beginning, a way of continuing, and a way of moving forward.
Wonderful. So when you're talking about, actually bringing it to your parish, Mare and I were talking about this, there are really kind of two ways you can look at it. You can look at it as a bottom up or a top down. And the nice thing is that you can do both, and one can actually help lead to the other. We find that for a lot of people, the easiest way to get things going is what we call the bottom up, which is literally just start one small group. Talk to a few people, some people who are kind of like-minded, maybe someone who's not, who you think could benefit, and say, I'm having this small group discussion at my house. We're doing it once a week for the next 6 weeks. Can you join us? And start with that small group. This is how grassroots movements begin. This is what, when you think about it, and what happens is that, like wildfire, they just grow and they expand. And the wonderful thing about it is, once you've gone through this with your small group, you now have a core group of parishioners who are engaged in this topic, who know what this is about, and who can serve as leaders if you started in your parish. So then, if you're going to move it to, I think this is really important, I'm going to approach my pastor about it. And a lot of people, it's like, how do I talk to my pastor about this? And it does seem daunting. First thing, have a plan. The better you can have a plan, and the more you can show the pastor that he doesn't have, this isn't more work for him. If you've got your people who've been through the group, who can serve as your leaders, you say, okay, I've got, these people who can already lead groups. We at Renew, we do training sessions, and, we'll do some, if your parish is going to do something, we'll do an online training session if you've got other people who haven't been through it, who need leader training. And so then you can say, okay, we've got the leaders in place. We've got, I've already talked to Renew. We can set up a training session with them. People will pay for their own books. All we need is permission to put a notice in the bulletin. It takes all the pressure off, and it allows this to then move out into the parish. And Alice, you had a great comment earlier about that, the planning comment.
Exactly. My pastor had said, whenever you have an idea, if you've got a plan, you show me the plan and then you go do it. And
Mhm.
it was empowering, and you felt that, you had consulted with the pastor. So it wasn't just like a, fly by the seat of your pants. And it worked both ways.
Yeah.
And one
Mare,
of the one of the great things about faith sharing in these small group settings to add that you can share with your pastor if there's a question about, well, where is this going to happen? It can happen in your homes. It can happen virtually. I think we've all adapted to the opportunities that, the positives that came out of COVID are, we are learning Zoom and all of the things that we can do now that we never thought to do before to meet as small groups. And you can meet in, at a park. You can meet somewhere that you feel is a safe space for you to have some of these conversations, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a space physically at the parish on the parish property. Of course, that's also an option for you, but just to keep that in mind, to think a little bit differently about where these opportunities can be for your small groups to meet.
yeah. And so, looking at what we can do to support, what resources can Renew give you? Well, we have literally a page full of them. It includes videos, interviews with Sister Helen that go along with every session, except for the first one, because the first session is actually watching the film Dead Men Walking. So we kind of figured that another video was a little redundant at that point. And all of these are also as podcasts. So if you just want to listen to them, you can listen to them. And so these are all such things that go along with each session, and there are wonderful resources that Alice has brought to our attention that are also included in there. So there are documents that are right on this page. And let me see if I can manage this. Whoops. Oh, did it switch me? No. Okay. I've got multiple screens up and I'm not used to that. Sorry about that. Here's the link. So you can get right to that page if you like. And then we also have a wonderful webinar that we did in conjunction with the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. They were just wonderfully gracious and helped us out. And sorry about that. I'm trying to get the link to pull up. But they brought in Cardinal Gregory, and the conversation between Sister Helen and Cardinal Gregory was just amazing. And it's really wonderful. It's right on our YouTube channel. Don't worry, I'm going to send all of these links in the follow-up, so you will get those. We have a sample session of dignity and the death penalty, so you can actually see what a session looks like. And that's another great thing that, when you're bringing this, if you're bringing this to your pastor, if you don't have the full book, you can print out that sample session and say, here, look, this is exactly how we're, what we're going to be doing. This is exactly what we're going to be talking about. Look at how they've got it laid out, and it really gives you a great idea of how this all works. And then there are our partners, our wonderful, wonderful partners at the Catholic Mobilizing Network. And they have just so many resources on this topic. They keep you current with news. And honestly, if you're trying to get people engaged before you even start your own small group, maybe just send them to Catholic Mobilizing and let them sign up for their newsletter and start getting the notifications about what's going on. They have prayer vigils for, with every execution. One of the very sad things in the current news is that the state of Oklahoma has made plans to once a month for the next 25 months execute someone on death row. That's kind of scary. For the next, they've got over 2 years of executions planned. And, as much as we want to think that our justice system is infallible, it's not. That's why, organizations like the Innocence Project exist. So something to think about, but amazing resources with the Catholic Mobilizing Network. And we highly recommend that you sign up with them and connect with them. And then just for small group leaders, we have a small group leader resources page. It includes a short video training session. it shows there's some things that you can purchase from Renew, or essentials for small group leaders, as well as some other things, like how to get a Zoom session started. It kind of walks you through the technology there. So we really have some great resources available to you if you're going to be starting small groups. And the other thing is to watch your emails, because Mare and I are working to figure out a date. And in anticipation, hoping that some of the people who are here, who are signed up, are saying, yes, I'm going to bring this to my parish. I'm going to start a small group. Can I get some training? So Mare's going to do a training session. Absolutely. And we will send out an email to everyone here and let you know when that's going to be. So it'll be specific to dignity and the death penalty.
Yeah, and some of the things we'll cover in that, just in case you're curious, what does that actually mean? Kind of the nuts and bolts of leading a small group. So not just going through some of the content that you'll cover specifically to this resource, but also how, as a leader of a small group, do I manage a situation where maybe somebody's not speaking, they're not sharing? What should that environment look like as we're setting up for where we're going to meet? So some of those questions too that you might not be thinking about just yet, but we'll cover that and be able to answer some of your questions in real time as well.
So hopefully this gives you some ideas for bringing dignity and the death penalty to your parish, whether it's, you just start small, or whether you're going to go for it and start big and try to do things at the parish level or even the diocesan level. We'd love to see things. We have, in the Carolinas, I'm trying to, I think it's Raleigh, is actually, they are doing like a diocesan effort, and they, just bought a good chunk of books and have a diocesan based group that's going to be doing it. So, we'd love to do that as well. Mm-hmm. So, do you have questions? This is what we're here for. We want to be able to help you out, give you any information that you need in order to bring this to your parish, to engage in this dialogue. We recognize that this is a tough topic. And the wonderful thing about something like, dignity and death penalty is that it really just starts the conversation. Mm-hmm. And so we hope that you'll want to do that. So, any questions? We'll give people a moment. I'm going to stop the screen share for just a moment.
While we're waiting for questions, I would just like to bring in the connection between abortion and the death penalty, because they both, abortion certainly has been in the news a lot lately, and in the death penalty, both concern the dignity of life. One of the differences is that abortion protects innocent life, and lack of the death penalty would protect innocent and guilty life. So for some people, it's very hard to accept, having mercy toward those who are guilty. And participating in these sessions, that will be brought up. There are opportunities to discuss it. And again, there are resources to look into that.
Okay, Andy has a great question. What is the current church teaching on the death penalty? Looking at the CCC, well, it's the USCCB actually recently updated their page, and hang on, I will put this up in the chat. But what has come forward is that this is not something that we need anymore. We can keep our society safe without the death penalty. So let me show the screen. And so there is a Q&A. There we go. Up on the USCCB page, the link that I've just shared you. And so this gives you resources, and the Pope Francis has said that this is not something that we as a faith need any longer. So
Right, and he re-emphasized that in the encyclical Fratelli Tutti.
Fratelli
So,
Tutti, yeah.
yeah.
And for those who have not seen it, most of you have been through things. This is the book itself, which you can find on our store. If you go into the social justice section, it is pretty much the first thing you see. There are links on this page to the Catholic Mobilizing Network, so you can get to that there. There's a sample session there. And as you see, we also, to make things easier, if you're doing a parish-wide effort, if you want to send out a flyer, put up a poster, you need sign-up cards, we've created those for you, and they're linked right here. You can just download them. It's also available as an ebook. If you don't want a hard copy of the book, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Barnes & Noble on your Nook, or you can get it through iTunes. So all of those things are available to you with the book. So let's see, do we have any other questions here? No, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. We will, of course, when we send the recording of this webinar, we'll send you the link to the book, the link to the sample session. So these are things that we will include for you so that you can have them easily accessible at your fingertips. So are there any other questions? You all are being real quiet. We're not used to that with this topic. You guys are usually very chatty with this topic. And I think I was channeling Sister Helen there when I said y'all. And I do highly recommend watching the webinar with Sister Helen and Cardinal Gregory. It is just phenomenal, really phenomenal. And if you ever have the chance to, speak with her, she's very accessible. But if you ever get a chance to hear her speak in person, absolutely do so.
And I'll add in, even though it's listed as a Q&A, if anybody who's joining us has had success bringing this to your parish or to your diocesan offices, to share that as well, to give a minute for anybody who might want to share a story of success or kind of where you are in your own planning if you already have this kind of underway.
Yeah, we'd love to hear about those kind of stories. We always love to hear when people are working with our materials and learn from what you're doing. Mare and I have been in on some late night sessions. It was West Coast people, and learning how they worked with one of our resources. And it was so inspiring. So yeah, we'd love to hear your stories as well. Not seeing anything pop up. Oh, someone raised their hand. We can't unmute you. Can you drop something in the chat, Michael? Or into the Q&A? Not seeing anything pop up quite yet. Yeah, sorry, it's hard. I know people raise their hands sometimes when they have questions, but it's not like we can do it as in a classroom, unfortunately. We'll give a sec just in case it takes a moment for people to type things up and send things through. And there is, by the way, on our YouTube channel, in addition to the Sister Helen interview, all of the videos that go along with the sessions are also hosted there. There's actually a Dignity and Death Penalty playlist, which actually will add this webinar to it, so you can actually go right through those. And Sister Helen, the webinar is also available as a podcast. So if you just want to listen in and wonderful things working with the Archdiocese of Washington, they're great with accessibility. And so we actually had a sign language interpreter. Oh, are there any Spanish language resources? Not yet. Not yet. We haven't seen a need for that quite yet. And so we have not translated it quite yet. What a great question.
Yeah,
And
love that
we
question.
appreciate people asking the question, because it tells us that, yeah, this
Yeah.
is something we need to think about doing.
Mhm.
So if there are others who would like to see it in Spanish because they, have that need for their parishes, please raise your hands, tell us, reply, when you get the follow-up email, do let us know that.
Yeah. And
Because
feel
that
free to
tells
send
us.
us additional questions, maybe after you rewatch this, other
Right.
questions come up as you're talking with folks and trying to get this off the ground. We're here to help support you through that journey. So just reach out if you have questions as you're getting things started.
And Mare, you want to pick up on this wonderful question?
Are there other Spanish language resources on social justice themes? Yes, yes, we do. I'm probably not going to say it correctly, Jen.
La justicia brota de la
La
fe.
justicia, yes. So this is
And that is actually a 2-book set. Father Alan Deck, who is a Jesuit, is the author on that, and it is written. He is a Spanish speaker, so it is written originally in Spanish, looking at Catholic social justice teaching. So that's a great resource. Have you heard of any next steps a parish took after the small group? I'm trying to think. Not necessarily for parish, but we've had individuals who have come to our online faith sharing, who have then signed up with Catholic Mobilizing Network, and then have kind of engaged in some of their political activism, and signing petitions, and moving forward with things in that way.
And I haven't heard this happen, but I'll just toss this idea out there. Maybe hosting an opportunity for your parish to watch Dead Man Walking and have, prayer and reflection and discussion after that. Maybe to bring somebody in who can speak to folks and just continue that conversation, to continue to build that out and that awareness out.
And what's the other film that we were just talking about, Mare? Just Mercy?
Just Mercy, yep.
That is another amazing film, and it gives you a real insight into where our justice system can go wrong, and why so that having such an absolute answer isn't necessarily a great response.
Right, and that's something that we all have basic human rights, but some people were denied those rights, and you see that the Just Mercy experience, where going through the legal system, the method and the fact of arrest, court process, the incarceration experience, the repeated appeals for new trials, and then the ultimate loss of life for those that were on the death penalty. So it's a very long, complicated system that is not administered justly, and it's administered differently depending on what state you're in.
Very true. So we have a great question. Is there a way to involve those who have been so focused on anti-abortion work in conversation about becoming fully pro-life and working against death penalty, for support for mothers, children, and families pre, peri, and postnatal, for immigration reform, for environmental concerns, and all these social justice issues, including gun control? It's a lot.
Yeah.
I think that part of it is, right now, is that there are so many people who are engaged in pro-life issues when we're looking at abortion, and there are so few who are engaged in it when it gets beyond that. And I think that honestly, you just have something like this that just starts the conversation.
Absolutely.
Something that gets them looking at the fact that this really is a pro-life issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the fullness of Catholic pro-life teaching is amazing. It really is. And to start these kind of conversations and say, yeah, no, absolutely. What, because they're all like, well, what about, that's important. It's vital.
Mm-hmm.
and there's so many people who are engaged in it. What about this? Can we look at the other things that are here too, and see the fullness of it? Let's make it richer. Let's make it broader. Let's look at the full depth of pro-life and the humanity of it.
Yeah, and these small group sessions, the faith sharing element that can be woven into these conversations can really, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a large group setting, but when you have those opportunities to speak with somebody in a very small, intimate setting and to share honestly and openly and hear one another, that's where that change starts to happen. And it does, and it takes some time, but those small groups are so powerful that, the prayer element, looking at what our church teaches us, and not to go in, all ready to fight and defend what your thoughts are on a particular pro-life issue, but to really understand our call as Catholics is pro-life, womb to tomb, and it includes a lot of things, and it's not easy, and there's a lot of pieces to what that means to be fully pro-life, but really starting small, starting in those small settings, and having those open conversations and learning from one another, and hearing where the other is coming from, is so helpful to continue that dialogue, and to kind of build that thought out beyond just that small group setting to others that now that person or you might encounter, to be able to have a conversation in a different way than before you might have had this small group opportunity to talk with somebody or one-on-one conversation with somebody.
And I think that all of us who, engage in small groups can with absolute honesty and certainty say the Holy Spirit works through these groups. I mean,
absolutely.
there have been, times where, whatever the reflection was like exactly speaking to a person in the group, and you see the Spirit at work, and you invite the Spirit in, and you will be amazed at what happens.
Yeah, and sometimes, as Jen mentioned, you can see it, you can feel it, and sometimes we don't, right? Sometimes we just need to trust that the Holy Spirit, like, things are going to be happening, and we might not be there to witness it happening, but that person might now be having a conversation that you're not privy to, but is showing that there's a change of thought, change of heart in maybe where they were 6 months before. Again, it's not an overnight thing that will happen. These are thoughts that folks have carried for, in some cases, years, decades. But this might be the first time that they're encountering this particular conversation, and to be mindful of that there was a time each of us kind of had our first encounter with this conversation around the death penalty, and what does that mean as a pro-life issue, and where were we? And we may have all come in at different thought processes as well, but just be mindful that we're all coming to these conversations with different lived experiences, and leave that space, as Sister Helen says, leave that space for the Holy Spirit.
Yep. Well, thank you for some fabulous questions. We hope that this has, helped you to realize that this is possible, and we'll help you make it possible. So please do reach out to us. I'll include both mine and Mare's email addresses, so you can reach out to either of us. And, we're happy to help in any way that we can. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This was a great conversation. Thank you, Mare. Thank you, Alice, for your amazing work in this book. I think one of my favorite moments of the webinar was when Sister Helen thanked Alice for her work in creating this book. That we were all thrilled to hear her raise up the wonderful work that Alice did with this. It really is. If you haven't read it yourself yet, do grab that sample session, grab a copy of the book, and read through it. It's quite powerful.
So make a lot of notes. I need a lot of notes in mine.
Highlighters. I'm a big one for having a pencil in my hand when I've got the book in my hand. So thank you, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll be getting this recording out to you. And, watch your email for more resources. And, Mare and I will work out a time to have a training session. So that'll be available to you if you're looking to start small groups in your parish. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.